Hello and welcome back. We are going to answer one of your questions about setting boundaries and speaking up for yourself. I did not need to prepare for this video at all because I have recently set one of the biggest boundaries I've ever set in my life. And I really take a step back from getting into specifics because I don't want my life or the specifics of that to kind of get mixed up with the way that you see things. But first off, we'll just read this question and then I will give you more than 3 ways to set a healthy boundary in your life with somebody, because healthy boundaries are something that can not only uplift your relationship with somebody, but they absolutely uplift the relationship you have with yourself. And before I get into any of this, I want to repeat something I said in the past video, which was essentially, if somebody made plans with you and they said, meet me at this place at 3 p.m. and you said, okay. And you then, it's like around 1 p.m. and you're about to show up and they send you a text and they say, actually, I can't make it. Something came up, emergency, whatever. You'd be like, oh, okay. You probably understand and go about your business. Then they set up a date with you another time. It's friends saying, hey, let's meet up. And they essentially, they say probably like a half hour beforehand, sorry, I can't do it this time. And you're like, okay, it's getting a little weird. They set it up again and you get to the place. You wait there for 10 minutes and they say, hey, I'm so sorry I couldn't make it. I just wasn't feeling it. And now, fool me once, right? Now you're like, it's one thing to be like, okay, why is this person still doing this? But it's also the question of, why am I still showing up for this? Why am I putting myself in a position to be let down? That feeling is the same exact thing when you don't show up for yourself, when you don't draw the line or the boundary for yourself, and you keep committing to this thing. I want to go for a run, but I didn't do it. Or I want to study that language, but I didn't do it. Or I want to reach out to that friend, but I didn't do it. You have that thing on the checklist that you haven't checked off in a very long time. And because you haven't held yourself accountable to it, you really haven't done it. It just doesn't get done. You end up being your worst boss. You end up not setting a healthy boundary for yourself because you're continually making a promise. You're drawing a line in the sand and then you're crossing it, line in the sand and then crossing it. And you're not really speaking up for yourself. You're not advocating for yourself. So therefore, if you can't advocate for yourself, how can you advocate for a healthy boundary with somebody else outside of you? That's the big question. All right? We're going to get back to that, but first we're going to get to the question that I'll be answering right now. Interesting. I'm actually really great at active listening, but I struggle with speaking up. Would you be willing to make a video on speaking up for yourself / setting boundaries? Thanks for the insight. And you know what? I've just decided it right now. I've chosen it right now. This is going to be one of 7 for speaking up for yourself. So we're going to make this into a series. So this is video 1 of 7 on speaking up for yourself. I just decided that. So here we are. But speaking up for yourself, let's take this step by step with healthy boundaries. And what I'm going to do is give you a few tools for drawing healthy boundaries between you and other people. Speaking up for yourself, 1, it only happens when the version of you is fed up with your circumstances. Speaking up for yourself can only happen when a version of you is fed up with your current circumstances. It also can happen if you're not fed up, but you see basically this person is never going to show up to the coffee shop for you. You're fed up, you're done. You know where this road is going to go. You know how this is all going to shake out. I'm not dealing with it anymore. I'm not going to do it. I'm mad as hell and I won't take it anymore. So you've reached a point of no return. I think it's fair to ask yourself how you got there, but but I don't think it's actually fair for you to invest time into figuring out how you got there. Either way, I digress. Speaking up for yourself happens when you've reached a wall or a limitation. Yeah, and I think it's actually important to figure out how you got to that wall or limitation. So understand that the only reason why you're doing this is because you have a desired outcome. You desire your environment to be different and your relationship to be different. Two, when you do speak up, it's because you want to change the external. You want to change what's going on, correct? Three, you have to understand that you can never change you can't change people. You can't tell them what to do. So when you speak up for yourself, you have to understand that what you're doing is you're exactly doing that, speaking up for yourself. You're not speaking to change a person or to, warp or change the environment that's around you. You're speaking to speak up for yourself. And it's because you haven't spoken up for yourself. So there's been a certain amount of time that you haven't spoken up. And I think I think it's fair to actually invest time in look at why didn't I do that? Was that out of fear? Was that out of maybe a fear of abandonment, a fear of retaliation, a fear of, well, I don't know who I am if I speak up for myself? That is a huge one. That is a huge prospect to take on or a notion to take on, because many people have spent entire lifetimes not saying anything. So when they do speak up, they don't even know how to deal with it. I don't know if you've ever seen, gosh, it happens in movies all the time. It's where the protagonist finally takes up their sword and they're like, no, I shan't be taking this anymore. And then the antagonist or the anti-protagonist turns around and says, what did you say? And then all of a sudden, it's like Karate Kid, A Dragon's Tale, really anything. I mean, there's so many moments of this in Game of Thrones where somebody's not going to take it anymore. And they're drawing a healthy boundary. They are drawing a healthy boundary and they're saying, it stops here. It stops here. But the first, and I've actually just gone scatterbrained with this whole topic because it's so important to me. But I'm going to organize my thoughts and just give you several steps on how to speak up for yourself. Number one, understand it's because you haven't spoken up for yourself. So this may feel a little bit almost over the top or hyperbolic, just like, whoa. So assess what is it that you want to speak up about, because this can come off a little bit extra or much contextually. No, here comes a train. The light's going to go out a little bit. This is going to be so cool. And then it's slightly darker. Not really. It's kind of cutting off the sun. But I think it's important to figure out what you want to speak up on. What is it? The second thing is, and we already talked about this, you're not going to change your environment or the person. What you're going to do is you're going to establish a relationship with yourself where you're actually showing up to the coffee shop. So really understand that this isn't to change the 3D. This is making a promise to yourself. When you speak up for yourself, you build trust with yourself. When you speak up for yourself, you build a relationship with yourself. When you speak up for yourself, you build love with yourself, because you're saying, hey, I got your back. And that is a tough thing to do for yourself sometimes. So you have to understand that the act is building the relationship that you have with yourself. This can only be, in my mind, a healthy thing, because drawing a healthy boundary with somebody or speaking up for yourself is it's declaring what your life is going to be. And the thing is that I understand it might be scary because you're being this person that you've never been before, and somebody might be like, what did you say to me? Like in the movies, but you're going to have to deal with the blowback. The third thing is I would make a plan for what you want to have happen with you after that. What do you want to have happen with you after that, for you after that? I'm going to give you an example in a little bit. You're speaking up, one, because you haven't in some time. Why is that? When you speak up, understand that you're building a relationship with yourself. After you speak up, please have a plan on how to have some quiet time or reflection with yourself. Those are the three things to just write down and have with you before you even go into this. And when you speak up for yourself, drawing a healthy boundary, and we have to understand what a healthy boundary is, because if you don't understand what it is, then you're just going to be telling people to F off and thinking, yes, healthy boundaries everywhere. You. Next thing you know, you're getting in a condemnation war and you're just cutting everybody off. It's where's all your friends? Ah, yes, I stonewalled all of them. And so I laugh because I used to do that, and I thought that was the cool thing. That will definitely be a video in the series, but you have to understand a healthy boundary is just something that you draw and you say, this is not going to happen again. And gosh darn it, man, this is going so many different directions, but I get emotional talking about this. I started this off saying I recently drew one of the biggest boundaries that I've made in my life. And to this person that asked the question, speaking on this, a healthy boundary, you have to understand, first off, if I were you, I would research interventions. And so an intervention is when you intervene, you interrupt. There was one I saw on TV where there was a young man who had a gambling addiction, and his family called him in. They surprised him with it because they knew that he was going to avoid it if they were going to bring it up. And the gambling addiction, they brought it up and they said, hey, we're going to be cutting you off. We're cutting you off from funds. We're not going to give you any more money. We love you, and we want to be around you, but not when you're gambling. And that's all you can do. That's all you can do. A healthy boundary is to create a healthy relationship. And that healthy relationship starts with you. I will not be around you when you're using, but I will be around you when you're sober. I will not be around you when you talk to me like that, but I will be around you when you don't use words like that. I will not be around you when you're being verbally or physically abusive, but I will be around you if there's somebody else in the room to make sure that you're not going to get down with any of that activity that's been in the past. I won't be around you if I won't be around you if I don't feel safe, but I will be around you if there's a lawyer in the room. These are just terms of engagement. This happens all the time with divorce. This happens all the time with the legal system. But with family, it's tougher. And I drew that boundary very firmly. The funny part about it is that it took a public situation for me to figure it out. And I think God and the universe are always on time, so I don't really question it. The way it happened was the way it happened, and when it happened, it felt humiliating, it felt embarrassing, it felt very painful at the moment. And I walked out, and then I went to my therapist and I said, I got to figure this out, otherwise I can't go to the grave, not tending to this relationship. Sheesh, this is going to get emotional. And so I said, I want to figure this out because I want to have this relationship, but it cannot be in the way that it was at this specific environment and circumstance. And we talked it out, and we figured it out, and I sent this person a text, and I said, hey, here's how I'm gonna go. Not how this is gonna go. I can't control the circumstances. I can't control anybody's behavior. I said, if that happens again, I'm leaving right away. If this is sprung upon me in any way, or this topic is brought up in any way, I'm leaving right away. These are the things I will do. These are the things I will not do. And that's final word. The word is bond. I don't break it for anybody. I don't go back on it for anybody. I will not, unless pre-planned, that's not how it's gonna go. And if you wanna talk about it a month beforehand, great. But it will have to be a month beforehand. There will be nothing within a month that I will, where I will, be in service of this. I won't be a part of it. I won't be involved. Unless it's discussed, more than a month out. And that was it. That was it. And that was simply the healthy boundary I set. I don't, there are some situations where cut all contact off because it's honestly, sometimes it's not safe. But for this particular healthy boundary, I spoke up, and as a person who's a highly sensitive person and has codependency, which we'll get into another time, if I didn't draw the healthy boundary, and this is where this will be of use to you, if I didn't draw the healthy boundary, one, I wouldn't have the relationship that I have with this person right now, which is way better, way more joyous. It's opened up spaces that we've never been able to go to before, conversations and words and love we've never been able to express before. But I also wouldn't have that love for myself. And it's just tough because there's a lot of times you feel that there's certain limitations to relationships because it's just the way things are. It is what it is. And you feel you don't have access to it because you really kind of blame or shame yourself. And that's part of the highly sensitive thing. That's part of the deal of being human, man. That's part of life's terms. But it doesn't have to be that way. That's the craziest thing. The most beautiful thing about healthy boundaries is that you find out it never had to be that way anyways. And it can be this really new, cool, awesome way that you're creating and constructing. And so that's really the gold and the gift with healthy boundaries is you're able to, by declaring who you are, what you ain't gonna do and what you will do, you're opening up a whole world. Now, if it seems paradoxical because you're, in a sense, you're drawing a limitation, you're drawing a line. But if you don't have lines or some type of integrity within your life, then anybody has access to anything to you. You're saying yes to everything. You're okay with all of this. You're co-signing on everything. You're being quiet about it. Speaking up for yourself is a radical expression of self-love because you are stating who you are, you're declaring who you are, and you're saying it in a way that isn't trying to infringe on anybody else's autonomy or agency. It's just saying, this is where I put my body and my voice. This is what I'm about. And if you're not about that, cool, we just won't be in the same room. And that's just what it is. No harm, no foul to you, but I won't be suppressing myself or editing myself to be around this behavior any longer. And that's essentially it. And for some people, that's the end. It means that we won't be around each other. There are some people that I haven't seen for 20 years and it's come around and relationship has blossomed. But you can't really direct the how this happens. What you get to do is state who you are and what you will be about. How it goes down is how it's going to go down. There was this great quote where it was talking about having your desire versus declaring how it will happen. Do not put the how in front of the desire. Just deal with the desire. Just get with the desire. Get with that. And how it's going to go down, it'll be what it's going to be. I could never have fathomed how this potential relationship, this relationship I'm speaking of, would go down. But it is far more amazing and limitless now than it ever was before, simply because I drew a healthy boundary, and that was it. And I wouldn't have done it any differently. It happened when it had to happen. And I did, step 1, 2, 3. Step 1 being, there's been a certain amount of time where I haven't spoken. That was very helpful for me to research why I did not do that. Delved into childhood, delved into some, codependent coping mechanisms, some anxious avoidant attachment styles. And then 2, I got with, well, how did I want to say this? I sat down and I contacted a few people and I said, hey, just know this is where I'm at and this is what I'm about. I love y'all and I'll be in touch, but this is not ever going to happen like that again. And then 3, I had a plan for how it was going to be, because a lot of people drawing a healthy boundary will sometimes look or feel like an impulsive, like counterpunch, and then you have to deal with all the things that you never imagined you would have to deal with at that time. But really, in reality, what you're doing is you're just in a very, very saturated moment of, it's not going to go like that anymore. And that happens on a macro level. It happens with countries, happens with communities, happens with state-sanctioned violence. It happens with institutions. But all that being said, when you know that you want to speak up for yourself, really, it's time for you to get down to the nit and grit of, well, why haven't you done it? 2, when you do it, what do you want to say? And 3, how do you want to be after it? Like, well, how do you want to hold to that? Because a lot of people, they will draw a healthy boundary and then they will let that thing go like the wind. It'll be like, well, that was yesterday. You got to hold to it. And you have to understand that what's at stake it's really your life. Your life is at stake. And that's I'm not trying to be dramatic about that, but that's just the reality of it. You change your life entirely when you start drawing healthy boundaries. And again, study up on interventions. That is going to help you greatly. It is not telling anybody, hey, you can't use anymore. Hey, you can't shout or be wilding out anymore. It's just saying, hey, my body will not be in the same proximity of you when that is going down. I will out of there real quick. And that's just the way it's going to be. And I think it's really beneficial to maybe even watch some intervention talk on TV. So this is one of 7 of speaking up for yourself and drawing healthy boundaries. And we will get more into it later on. Thank you so much for watching this one. Emotions, big feelings, just like the name of the channel. Yeah. All right. We'll see you in the next video.